Hallo almal. Hey, gister, as julle nie weet nie, was Ruben en Monja 4 jaar saam, 5 jaar, 6 jaar. 5 jaar saam, 2 jaar getroud. Nee, dis close. 2 jaar getroud, baie geluk julle. Oh, dis goed. Dis cool. Ons sal volgende jaar kom, ja. Welcome to everyone tuning in online. I hope you get something out of this morning, something you need. This is the last message of our series for this month, obviously, and the series being, or the title of the series being, When to Say No. And we've touched on a few things during this month, things to say no to. Landa started off by speaking about judgment. Yes. She also spoke about fear, saying no to fear. And then Isak did a message where he went completely a different route. Instead of focusing on what to say or when to say no, he spoke about what to say yes to. And this morning, I tried to put together a message that sort of, if I had to conclude or summarize when to say no to, instead of mentioning a bunch of different specific situations, what is the overall idea? And hence my message for this morning, entitled When Jesus Said No. I figure when he says no to something, then I should probably also say no to it. So that's the idea. Let's hope it goes well. I did a bit of research and I asked a few people, what are the top things, the most common things that makes it hard for them to say no to a situation or to another person. And I've sort of came down to these 6 things, and I just want to mention them to you. It's quite interesting. So the first was a fear of rejection. So you rather say yes because you fear the group is going to reject you. Second is people pleasing. So that's just, saying yes to keep everyone happy except yourself. Conflict evasion. You'd rather say yes than engage in an argument. Guilt. A fear of missing out. And then lastly, habit. You're just in the habit of saying yes to people. You don't even really think about it. And some people just say no or say yes because they think it's rude to say no. I guess there are certain circumstances where it is rude to say no. But I think a lot of it, at least for me, a lot of it has to do with culture as well. See, part of my upbringing as a white South African is that it's rude to say no to people who are considered your elders. And it's not like it gets treated like a sin, but it's very much frowned upon to say no to your elders. And if you don't believe me, I thought about a little bit of a test that we can do. And I was hoping that Eliada was here this morning because they are more my age group and this would apply more on them. But so the test goes like this. The next time you and your parents go to visit any of your extended family and that very strange, very awkward uncle or aunt comes at you with their very sobby, wet, wrinkly, cracked lips. And they come in for that big smooch. The challenge is for you to simply take one step back, hold your hand up like this in a very kind but firm manner, and say out loud, "No, thank you." And if no one gets upset about that, that means there was no preconceived expectation for you to say yes, which means I'm wrong. I don't think in this particular situation that I am wrong, though. And that's the thing about saying yes or saying no. We all agree that it's a good thing to set up boundaries. None of us are disputing that. We're all saying, yes, it's healthy to have boundaries. Until Herman says no to me. Then it's a different story. We all agree it's good to have boundaries until my boundary stands in the way of you getting what you want. Then all of a sudden it's a different tune. Herman is lazy. Herman is unhelpful. He's selfish. That's why he's not helping. And I think the reason for this is, why would we all agree that it's good to have boundaries, but the moment it's an issue to you, it stops you from getting what you want, why then would we be upset? And I think it's because we have this underlying expectation, an unspoken expectation of each other. I expect you to help me if I ask for help. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. No nonsense. Because I am great, I am important, I'm convinced that the world revolves around me, and you should be lucky if I come to you and ask for your help, because that means I value your opinion and our friendship. That's why you should help me. I am very important. Is it okay to say no? Did Jesus say no? It's easy for us to say, yes, of course he said no. When he was in the wilderness, he said no to the temptations of the devil. And we all unanimously agree that was a good move, Jesus. That was the right thing to do because Satan bad. And so you should say no to him because he's the bad guy. What if you are the bad guy? What if Jesus is saying no to you? Because in my personal experience, my reaction to that is normally not, oh, awesome, thank you, good move, well done, Jesus, I think you did the right thing when saying no to me. No, obviously we don't react that way. That would mean we are mature. Matthew, I want to go through two examples with you this morning that Jesus said no to people. There's quite a few examples, but I specifically chose these two. So first one, and if you have your Bibles with you, it's Matthew 12. And I'm going to read verse 38 and 39. I just want to, before getting to that, also mention the whole expectation thing, like we help each other, or I expect you to help me because I think the universe revolves around me. I'm not talking about, there are, let's call them something like mutually yoked or equally yoked friendships, where both parties are willing to invest into the friendship or into the relationship. And that's great. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about us as human beings having an innate expectation of each other, not just when it comes to saying yes or no. We have a bunch of expectations of each other that, when not submitted under Christ, becomes selfish and prideful. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying this. So Matthew 12, verse 38 and 39. Then some of the scribes and Pharisees answered him, saying, and they're speaking to Jesus, "Teacher, we wish to see a sign from you." We wish to see a sign from you. But he answered them, "An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of the prophet Jonah." Just out of curiosity, by show of hands, who here has been in a situation where you asked Jesus, "Give me a sign"? Okay. I've been there many times before. I don't think this passage is saying, asking Jesus for some sort of sign or signal or guidance is in all situations bad. I think, for example, when you are at a place where you need to make some big decisions that involve not only yourself, but maybe your family, maybe even your friends, then what better thing to do than to ask for his guidance or to ask for a sign? Help me, a good one, or one that's, when I was a bit younger, that was very prevalent in my life, was anything that was on a surface, like a glass or anything. My question would, I would sit there and I really want to do this thing, but I need you to agree with me and let me know that this is the right thing to do. And I would sit and look at the glass and say, okay, Jesus, just like a centimeter, let that glass just move by itself for like a centimeter. And then I would know you are okay with this decision. I did that a few times. A lot of times it didn't, most times it didn't work. But that was always my go-to. Like, let me just see this, somehow give me some sort of physical sign that I know that you are okay with this. And I think asking for a sign in that context, I don't think there's anything wrong with it if you mean it. If you really actually want his guidance. Because a lot of times where I asked for his guidance, I would, let's say it's a situation where there was something I really wanted. Not necessarily something I needed, just I wanted to really buy this thing, but it's kind of expensive. So I feel a little unsure about it, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So I'm going to ask for guidance. Jesus, do you think it's a good idea to buy this thing? And then I don't know what, I think maybe like communication error or something, but then Jesus gives the wrong answer. And I think it's because he doesn't understand just how badly I really wanted to buy that thing. And then you kind of overwrite it. And it's like, okay, great. Jesus, give me your guidance. And then he gives it. And you're like, thank you for your opinion. I'm going to go ahead and do whatever I wanted to do in the first place, because you didn't give the right answer. That's not you wanting guidance. That's you wanting affirmation from God to say, yes, I think it's a good idea that you do whatever you want to do. So that's not what I'm talking about. When you truly are seeking guidance from him, I think it's okay to say, can you give me a sign? Help me to understand what is not the right decision, but the decision that is within your will and your plan for my life. But that's not what the Pharisees were doing at all. They could care less about guidance or anything like that from Jesus. In fact, I think they didn't even really want a sign from him. All they wanted was to make sure that everyone that was present that day could see that Jesus couldn't provide a sign. That's what the agenda was there. Second example, John chapter 8, verse 1 to 11. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. Early in the morning he came again to the temple. All the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and placing her in the midst, they said to him, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? This they said to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground, and as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they had heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up and said to her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more. Once again, the Pharisees end up testing Jesus, and once again, they fall short. I think it's important. We've all probably heard that story many times over. It's important to remember who we are in the story, if that makes sense. Because I think sometimes you are the one being metaphorically stoned by situations, by people, whatever. But sometimes you're the one throwing the stones. And I think we love to sort of instinctively paint ourselves into these Bible stories as the victim. We're always the victims. But more oftentimes than not, I think we are the culprits. And it's important to remember that, because and that's why I'm friends with the people that I'm friends with, because I can trust them to call me out on my nonsense, which they do frequently. They are very good at it. I cannot. They are way better at it than they need to be. But I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for the fact that I'm also friends with them because sometimes they're nice. But I'm grateful for the fact that they call me out. As long as you surround yourself only by people who keep on affirming your blindness, who keep on affirming your insanity, you will never be able to live beyond that, to go beyond that, to see beyond that. I chose these two examples because of two things that they have in common with each other. The first is both of these examples address the Pharisees. Both examples is Jesus saying no to the Pharisees, which I find interesting because back in the day, they would be the people that would be considered the ones, if anyone knew the law of God, if anyone knew His will, it was them. They are the important people with the big robes. They're the clever people. They know His will, according to them. And yet, these are the people that He says no to. Now, I don't think He's saying no to them because they are Pharisees. He's saying no to them, and He's denying them because of their hearts. He's saying no, and in fact, He calls them, and you probably all heard this, He calls them whitewashed tombs, saying, you're very beautiful on the outside with all your wealth and status and, whatever, your religion. But on the inside, there's nothing but death. The second example, or the second thing these two examples have in common, is that both of them talk about people in a very manipulative way, advancing their own personal agendas, even though it's going against the will of God, even though it's going against the God's agenda, which is the only agenda that really matters. And I think oftentimes we say things like we need to submit our requests to God. And I've never really thought about that. I've always just assumed that meant tell God what you're going to do. You're submitting your request to God. But then that's not submitting. That's not what submission is. And I think oftentimes we make that mistake by thinking, I am submitting my request to God because I'm including Him in what I'm going to do. I'm not asking your opinion about this, God. I'm not asking for guidance. I'm telling you, I'm going to do this. Protect me as I do this. That's not submission. That's advancing your own agenda. And I think a lot of times what we think looks like submission is just simply me advancing my own agenda. At the end of the day, the focus with this month's theme, I believe it's not really about when is it the right time to say yes, when is it the right time to say no, when should you allow the weird uncle on to kiss you. That's not the point of this month's theme. The focus is on God and His plan for us. And whatever is for that plan and whatever comes against that plan becomes your determining factor for saying yes or saying no. And so, to conclude this, what do we say no to? Two things that I think sort of summarize this. And this is not me being Oleg. I just got this from the Bible. um, Firstly, we say no to anything that forces you to try and hide from God's love for you, to try and get away from His love for you. We say no to that. So anything that I do that might cause me to feel shame or guilt or whatever, that makes me want to hide from God, I should say no to that. And then secondly, we say no to anything that forces us to move away from reflecting His heart to the people around us. And one of the people that I asked, I didn't ask them beforehand if I could share this, so they'll remain anonymous. But you know who you are. So they said something very interesting that I feel comes in line with this second thing. We say no to anything that forces us to move away from reflecting the heart of God. Because that can easily be translated to, okay, so I should always say yes to people. I should always keep people happy because God wants us to be happy. And that's not at all what that means. So this specific person that I asked, so the question was that I asked to them was, what makes it difficult for you to say no? And they started off by saying that in the context of their family, they always saw themselves as expendable. So as long as my family is okay, as long as they are healthy and their needs are met, this person, I am expendable. It doesn't matter what happens to me. Until they got to a place where they were completely exhausted and they couldn't do anything anymore. And they were broken. And they asked God, they told God, I can't do anything for you anymore. Because I was keeping everyone happy, and it doesn't matter what happens to me. And now I can't do anything for you anymore. And God asked them, and do I have you? And they said, yes. And God said, that's all I want. We say no to anything that forces us to move away from reflecting the heart of God to the people around us. And if you are saying yes to everything, and that inevitably ends up in a place where you can't say yes to anything anymore, that means you can't reflect His heart to those around you anymore because you just don't have the energy or the will or whatever you want to call it. That's not a good thing. No to anything that makes me want to hide from His love, and no to anything that forces me to move away from reflecting His heart to those around me. Let's pray. God, I don't think that this is one of those things that we can logic out and decide for ourselves. And so today we want to truly submit this to you. I want to ask that you give us guidance in every decision we make, in every yes we give, in every no we give. Give us guidance in that. And as Ruben said this morning, that our decisions might be fueled by your wisdom and not my smarts. Give us wisdom, Lord. Give us grace. And above all, help us to live from out the wellspring that is your love. Help us to allow that love to ignite us and to fill us and to fuel us and to give us the strength and the capacity to relinquish anything that comes against your plan for our lives.